you for the introduction and also for inviting me. So how long do I have for my talk?
Oh, how long?
Yeah.
You have 30 minutes total. Whenever you end, we can just go into questions.
Okay, sounds great.
Yep.
All right, so the title is actually just the take-home message, the fragile audio-visual integration on the adversarial attacks. If you want to make it even shorter, I have a 5-word version. The audio-visual integration is fragile. Okay, that's the take-home message, and you can leave without listening to the rest of the talk. So before I convince you with the rest of the talk, I want to give a quick shout out to Yapeng. So Yapeng is my senior PhD student, and he finished this work. For people in this community, you might be already familiar with him. He is the guy who presented 3 papers in a row in the 2020 meetings and 2 papers in 2019. And for this year's CVPR, he has 2 papers, and this is one of them. And he also organized a tutorial on audiovisual scene understanding yesterday. And he will be on job market soon. So back to the talk, I want to give a little bit motivation first. As humans, we live in a multisensory world, and what we see can help us listen, and what we hear can actually help us see. For example, the speech comprehension is better if you can watch the person talk and also listen to that person. However, there are some caveats. For example, the Mcgirk Effect. So I'm going to show you 2 videos, and I will let you guess what you hear. Right, very clear to me. This is bar sound, and this is a far sound. However, what if I tell you the audio, the sound hasn't changed? It's the bar sound, only the visual has changed. Okay. So for machines, for people in this community, we care about images and videos. And videos are actually a multi-modal data, contains both visual and audio, right? And likewise, we do lots of fusion to understand videos, and fusion is used everywhere, basically, for video understanding. For example, for event recognition, event retrieval, and for video captioning, and many others, right? So just like humans do, we integrate different sensories together. So I'd like to ask, so what if the information of modality is altered or attacked? Like here, we just show in the Mcgirk Effect. The sound hasn't changed, but I changed the visual representation. Will there also be a Mcgirk Effect for machines, right? If so, how can we overcome or defend it, right? So that's basically the motivation for the talk today. Before I talk about our problem setup, I just wanted to give a bird's eye view of the adversarial attacks. So adversarial attacks on unimodal systems are abundant. You can find them everywhere. For example, we have work attacked image recognition, right? And we have seen work attack optical flow estimation, right? By adding a small patch, you change the whole optical flow estimation field. Even beyond that simple little patch here. Attack object detectors. By adding some patterns, this person was not detected by the object detector, although the person in the background were all detected. And that has also been extended to attack speech to text by adding a imperceptible small perturbation to the speech signal the output text was completely different. And as a community, we start to see some recent works to explore adversarial attacks on multi-model systems. For example, this paper published on Archive May 2020 is exploring a white box attack on multispectral RGB plus thermal fusion methods. And in October 2020, this paper here, also on Archive, showed a black box attack on skeleton data for multi-model action recognition. And in November, there's a gray box attack between, white box is completely known, those model parameters, and black box is completely unknown, and gray box is sort of in the middle. They showed that, gray box attacks on multi-model image plus text models. However, the robustness of audiovisual models, which we care about in this community, whether those models are under attacks, those things have not been very well studied. Okay. And we would like to study those audiovisual integration under multi-model attacks. And we use this audiovisual event recognition as a proxy task to explore those adversarial attacks on multi-model fusions. Right? For those of you who are familiar with our work, this is a typical approach you used to do event recognition for audiovisual events, right? So given a short video clip or image, those visual data, you encode it, and also you can encode its corresponding, say, short second, 1 second, 2 second audio clip, and you extract those features from visual and audio, and you fuse them, and you do the event prediction. Okay, so they're very simple pipeline here. And if you add those little perturbations, right, into either those images or those audio sound, you can actually change those entirely for the prediction here. Okay? Sorry about my dog barking. Okay. Right. So when we're talking about this multi-model attack, we formulate a problem. So the goal here is to form the target multi-model model by adding those human imperceptible perturbations into its input from multiple modality. And here is a adversarial objective function, right? So this L loss is basically, when you do those event prediction, you specify some loss function, you want to minimize it. However, here, because we are attacking those models, so we want to maximize your loss, right? And the known factor here are the model's parameters. So we are assuming here only working on white box attack models. And those generated, X and XA, XV adversarial attacks examples are those things, you want to attack your system. And we have set some budget, which is that those adversarial examples deviate from your original example. There's a budget captured in the epsilon. And this formulation actually allows a few different instantiations if you wanted to, dig further. If you limit either those epsilon to 0, it's becoming a single modality attack, right? And if you give some budget to those epsilon A and epsilon V, it's a multi-model audiovisual attack. And in this work, we selected 3 representative white box attack methods. Simplest one is a fast gradient sign method. As the name suggests, we use a gradient sign to get those adversarial examples. And this is a simple equation. You can get a audio adversarial example. And by further, you can get visual. And these 2 methods here, PGD and MIM, each of them is a model variation of this FGSM, and it's becoming stronger and stronger attack. Okay? And we explored 3 data sets. The first one is a MIT music data set, which contains 520 videos over 11 instrument categories. Those videos are clean audiovisual synchronized music recordings. Second data set is a kinetic sound. It's a very large data set, contains over 15,000, 10 seconds YouTube videos, over 27 human action categories. Those videos are more noisy than videos in MIT music. And the third data set is the AVE data set we proposed in 2018, which contains over 4,000 videos, over 28 event categories, with both like daily human events like man speaking, woman speaking, dog barking. My dog was barking. Playing guitar, music events, frying food, human activities, right? Various domains with those audiovisual temporally synchronized segments. So really 3 different data sets with different characteristics. So the first experiments that we conduct is we want to see whether those performance of audiovisual attack on different data sets vary over different models. And if you look at this table here, each of those low section here represents a data set. And this column here means it's a clean model using audiovisual integration, right? So it's a typical fused model of multimodality. And following that, if you have, if we see this kind of mark here, that means your audiovisual integration is under attack on audio. And this is under attack on visual. And this is under attack on both audio and visual. And we can average over those 3 different attack types. And we also compare models that just use one modality, a single unimodality information. So this is a single unimodality A, unimodality V, right? And all those numbers were computed for averaged recognition accuracy over different event categories. So some observations we can draw from this table. First, clean audiovisual models, right, which is this column here, are always better than both clean single modality A or single modality V models, right? Because of the fusion, you can boost up the performance. Second, those audiovisual models under single modality attacks can lead to worse performance than those unimodal models, right? For example, so you have an audiovisual model under this audio attacked, right? And that's the performance here. And comparing to another model, you totally don't use audio at all. So this is a unimodal V, you still get a good performance, right? And here, if you look at this audiovisual model attack under this visual attack, and you compare with unimodal A, those performance are very bad, right? So in other words, those models being attacked actually drags down your multi-model performance. And a third observation is that those audiovisual attacks make models even worse, right? So if you inject those audiovisual attacks here, you can see the performance is even lower. And see, here's some examples. So this is a input frame and audio. This is a clean example. Predicted event is violin. And this, I'm going to show you one being attacked. Right? Basically, you can't tell the difference, but the predicted event changes to helicopter. Another example is here. This is a clean model prediction. And this is being attacked. As humans, we cannot sense what is being changed here. But for machine models, this changes the predicted event to dog barking. So how about we vary the strength of attacks. So this is a figure drawn from MIT Mcgirk dataset, and the x-axis denotes the attack strength. The previous table we were just looking at here. Okay, so the most strongest attack. So now we want to vary those attacks a little bit. And here are some interesting findings. So if you look at this first figure here, this is just the attack loss audio. Okay, now we can set a baseline here. So baseline here is a unimodel visual. We don't use audio at all. Okay, I forget about those integration. I just care about vision. Okay, and this is a baseline. And these three lines being attacked, those are multi-model models. They actually integrate those audio and visual information. And you can see under those clean condition, it does improve the model. But when you're varying those audio attack strengths, it's quickly, being worse than a model that doesn't use audio at all. And similarly, you can look at this figure here. This is a visual attack. We set a baseline, which is a unimodel audio. Don't use visual at all. You might say it's a very stupid method, right? Why don't you use visual? And these three lines here are audio-visual integrated model, but being attacked with different, attack methods. Like we said, we have three methods, being stronger and stronger. But a common observation is that when you just increase those visual attack a little bit, it starts to get worse than don't use visual at all. And this last figure here is basically, it's getting more complicated, but I will lead you to read it a little bit. So those solid lines are integrated audio-visual model. And those star dashed line are unimodel, visual model. And those circle dashed line are unimodel, audio model. And they are under audio-visual attack, right? All those multi-model, unimodel, all on a different attack. Same attack strengths over two modality. And you can see, right? Those are the integration of audio-visual. And this line above everything else is actually a unimodel visual model. Okay, so from those figures, I think an easy conclusion we can make is that an unreliable modality can actually weaken the perception by the other modality in audio-visual models. So, as a machine learning practitioner, you might say, okay, when should I perform audio-visual integration, right? To answer this question, we generated a plot like this. And this is simply on MIT Mcgirk dataset. It's the most simple but also effective test benchmark. And this line here, right? Two lines here, axis. One axis here is a per sample audio or visual under strong attack, the probability of audio visual under strong attack. Okay, so and this is for audio, right? So the probability of audio under strong attack is basically, we're looking at this, the last position here. And this is the probability of visual is under attack. And this z-axis is the accuracy of your system, right? And this green plot here is a audio-visual integrated model. And the yellow thing here is a uni-model visual model. Blue thing, which you can't really see it, is under everything else, is a uni-model audio model. We were at here. If we only care about clean performance, right? We don't care about any adversarial attacks. And it's like a tip of the iceberg as a community, right? And now I'd like to say we should look at this whole plot to include all those possible situations when you might receive audio attack you might receive visual attack, and you can compute the probability both modalities are unattacked, right? And here is where we are. So if you ask me the question, should we still perform audio-visual integration? The answer is it depends. There are many factors, for example, the likelihood and the strength of attacks. And the data set, whether this data set is a audio biased data set or this is a visual biased data set. But no matter what, a conclusion we can safely draw is that the joint perception is not always better than individual perceptions on attacks. Okay. So my second experiment here is just to want to see where different fusion methods would make a difference. And here are a bunch of fusion methods, including a simple sum, a simple concatenation, and more fancy methods like here defined it film, and also gated sum and gated concatenation. It often spent days to make this film work, but we found out the performance is not as good as they claim. And we can see that those different fusions achieve computative performance on attack-free inputs, right? But they are still vulnerable to different attacks. And it seems that the concat is actually the most robust function among all those compelled fusion methods, right? And this is a very surprising result, right? Concat, simple as concat, is actually performed the best when we consider those different robustness. And a third experiment that we did is that we try to visualize those sound sources on attack, and we used a audio-guided visual attention, which is a method we proposed in our ECCV 2018 paper. So you basically compute a attention weights to those visual regions by using your audio-visual capabilities. And here are some results. So the first column here contains input frame. And the second here are attacked frames. As humans, we can't really tell the difference. It's okay. And then the third column here is without attack. So those are where those audio-guided visual attention is looking at. Most of the time focused on a sounding object, most salient part. And you can see that attention actually shift away from those objects on a different attacks. That's an interesting finding. And we can see, those attacked model actually can shift the attention. And last but not least, so since we have these audio-visual attacks, right, we think, why don't we come up with some defense method? Okay. So adversarial attacks, by its core, are that they are maximizing the loss function that forces the output across its original correct decision boundaries, decision regions, right? And one way you can make it more robust to those adversarial attacks is that you can generate some, more compact intra-class representations. Okay? And that is being a idea we implemented here. So basically, we want to encourage those unimodel intra-class compactness of audio-visual models. And to do so, we come up a simple loss function. We see that we wanted to, first of all, compute a cosine similarity of audio and visual representations of the same audio-visual event. And we wanted to minimize their similarity, right? Sometimes we want to maximize them, but we found minimize them is actually leads to better performance. And your form model is basically optimized by a joint objective function. The first term here is you wanted to do a cross entropy with event classification. And the second term here is we want to minimize the similarity of audiovisual representations of the same audiovisual event, right? And then with the second term, the model will tend to learn those separated audio and visual embeddings. And the first term, still urges the features to be discriminative, but with the, the addition of the second term, right? So we will encourage the model to learn both separated unimodal embeddings, be more those compact and separable. And the left-hand side shows that, when you just compute it with cross entropy, and the right-hand side, adding the second term with minimizing those similarity between audio visual, you're sort of pushing away those clusters in your invariant representation, right? And you have a certain better robustness to those adversarial attacks. And a second idea here is that we want to leverage ideas from sparse coding and implement an external feature memory bank. And those feature memory banks features were basically obtained from clean training data, right? And you want to minimize certain selections of those sparse codes. And then the final feature will be reconstructed by those clean feature representations from your external memory bank. And we tested out those ideas and they actually work. So if you look at here, this non-low, which is you don't use anything at all, okay? You have unimodal A, unimodal V, and PCA is a adversarial defense technique we adapted here. Like I said, you can maximize the similarity between audiovisual, but what we did here is minimize the similarity. And you can implement the external feature bank, and the final model, the minimum similarity plus external feature bank actually gets the best performance. So I'm not going to go to the detail of this table, but you can find it in our paper. So as a quick summary, right? First, the audio-visual integration, right, after this work does not always strengthen the perception on the multi-modal attacks. An unreliable modality can actually weaken the perception by the other modality in audiovisual models. And those simple fusion methods like concat have actually better robustness. And some techniques can help with those audiovisual defense. And you can think about some interesting questions. So how about other audiovisual attacks like speech recognition, which are more biased to audio input, the sound, rather than here, most of the models are biased to vision. How about we forget about those white box attack, which is sort of stupid because no one will give you parameters of their models. So what if we test those audiovisual integration on the real world attacks? Is there a principled way for modality selection? As we can see that sometimes those single modal actually performed quite well, and sometimes we don't need those audiovisual integration. And what is more, it makes me to think, what is the law of fusion, right? Can we come up with some better defense techniques? Okay. And finally, I wanted to draw your attention to these two posters. I know my talk have left lots of questions, but it's our implemented, it's or featured as posters in this conference. And if you have more questions, feel free to stop by, and we would like to discuss that with you. And with that, thank you for your attention. And I can take some questions.
Great, I think we have time for maybe one question. Okay, I'll ask a question. Why do you think the concatenation was so successful as a fusion technique?
Yeah, so I can compare with sum, right? So concatenation and sum, both of them were connected to a FC layer. And a concatenation is sort of, having a, if you think about after concatenation, there's a FC layer, then it's like adaptively selecting those sum with all the different neurons. However, if you do a sum, it's, you are narrowing down all those possibilities. And later on, they might not be that effective.
Yeah. Great. Well, if we're running short on time, so if you have